Understanding how to exercise some level of control over your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in a given moment is crucial. Emotional regulation, also known as emotional self-regulation, is the practice of exercising some level of control over your thoughts, over your emotions, and behaviors at any given moment. Ideally, that means having the peace of mind to resist doing or saying something that will worsen your situation and that you'll likely regret, like screaming at your kids in the middle of Target or getting pouty after your team loses and remaining in the state for the rest of that day. So instead of emotionally regulating, you lose it, and then you remain in that state of mind for hours or the entire day. Basically, in short, emotional regulation is a skill that's crucial for everyone. The case for training or fine-tuning yours is simple. The world is full of stressors, from those brought on by COVID, the daily ones all of us face, financial, marital, and then add any type of betrayal or marital stress on top of that. It can really challenge our way to self-regulate. So how can we improve on your emotional regulation to, say, keep your anger in check or your fear from defining how you act on a daily basis? The process model of emotional regulation is and not to get into all that, I just want to stick with some of the tips and techniques for today, but our ability to control our emotions is neither total non-existent or existent. It's in between. So I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. Emotions are helpful, though, let me say this obviously, in a given context. So there's the idea that emotions cannot be controlled and that they are, or they should be controlled, is neither idea is helpful. So, they have to be managed, like crisis management, If we let our emotions control us, they do just that. If we're angry, our hearts race, there's strong changes in our breathing. If we control them too little, we clamp down on our emotions as they arise. They can lead to worsened mental and physical health. So feelings, emotions, they're not bad. They just can't run away. They just can't, we have to learn to control them, not let the emotions control us. Now, suppression, which is often the go-to strategy for men and women at times, they tend to suppress, especially after betrayal. This is kind of mostly a bad thing. In studies, people suppressing their emotions do poorly on memory tests, or worse, long-term suppression leads to cardiovascular and mental health problems. This is just with emotion. This is just with betrayal, because this gets layered with a bunch of other stuff. So how do you find your, quote, in between? First, by becoming aware of how emotions manifest and coming up with strategies to keep on top of them. So some of the ways how to sharpen your emotional regulation skills. There's 5 factors that go into emotions, 5 areas that when you give attention to them, they affect your emotions. Think of it like putting your thumb on the scale at each point in the emotion generative process. Adjust one or more of the points to change the emotions where they get generated. No one point is ideally suited for all situations, but there are some strategies that generally are more helpful for others. So I'm going to give you a few tips and techniques. You might love all of them. You might dislike all of them. There might be 1 or 2 you can try. There might be a few you already did. Or maybe you've tried all of these or some of these and they might not have worked before, but now you're at a point where they can be effective. So situation selection. Situation selection is avoiding people, places, and things that cause you to experience unhelpful, harmful emotions. If being around certain people stresses you out, try not to be around them, which I know you're thinking common sense, but trust me, I talk to people all day and oftentimes they don't do this. I talked to somebody the other day who, every time she drives by a store on her way to work, she can't stand this cashier and she gets angry. And I said, well, can you take a different route to work? And she was like, yeah, I never thought about that. So And I'm not going to say common sense because, maybe her brain was hijacked and she didn't think of it. But just to go back to show you, it's not common sense with a lot of people. And even if it is, people might not be logically thinking with their frontal cortex or what have you. Anyways, as much as you can, pick up the situations you're in based on how your emotions are going to be and what your emotion goal is. For instance, if your goal of not showing your anger in a certain way, situation selection is putting yourself into or getting yourself out of situations in advance, which is what I just talked to. Go around the other way if driving by a store is a trigger for you. So you're building your day to maximize the chance that you'll have positive emotions you want to have and minimizing the ones that you don't want to have. So for example, consider your potential stress levels before doing something fun with someone. If you're thinking about going to a beach, but it's a long drive and there's traffic, how about going to a park or a zoo where there's not a long line, there's not a lot of traffic, but it's equally as fun. So again, it's situation selection. It's changing the situation. Now, number two, for self-regulating your emotions, being proactive, it's what's called situation modification. So when you're in a situation not of your choosing, change something. So if you're in a situation, you just can't pick, say you're stuck in the house due to the pandemic, then modify your situation. You modify the situation so it's more likely that you'll have or not have certain emotions. So if there's stay-at-home orders in effect with the pandemic and your kids are at each other's faces and they're fighting and they're getting on each other's nerves, you can make a choice to either let that go and you're sitting there and your nostrils are flaring and you're listening to them fighting, or you can give them each individual chores to do or different tasks or different projects to work on. And that way they're not fighting. So, you really can't, you're not empowered to change the situation, but you can modify within the situation. And again, if you're probably sitting there thinking, well, common sense, not to everyone, not in every situation. Number three for emotional regulation is attention deployment. When a situation is unavoidable and seemingly unchangeable, you can still rein in your emotions by changing your attention. Attention is a critical gateway to emotion. Change your attention and change your emotion. Attention is a vehicle for achieving your emotional regulation goals, shifting towards or away from the aspect of the situation. So for example, when you're stressed about work or finances, your love life, or what have you, try your best to focus intently on something completely different that brings you something more calming or soothes you. Whether that's focusing on your plant growths or your gratitude journal or how blessed you are to live in a warm house when it's cold outside, this will help dissipate your upset. So basically, it's not changing anything except what you're focusing on. Change your focus. I always say you really can't help what comes into your mind, but you can help how long it stays there. Number four, cognitive change. So similar to the attention deployment, which is I was just talking about, cognitive change is a shift in what you're thinking about. For this strategy, you're thinking differently about the situation itself. It matters how you think about a situation. If you can change your thinking, you can change your emotion. So many things happen with our thinking, it's unreal. There's power in thinking differently about a situation that you're paying attention to. When people use reappraisal, they feel better, they look better, their physiology, their whole body, people have said that they look younger, they smile more when they just simply think about what they're thinking about. They're cognitively in tuned to their situation, and people are more drawn to them. This is a lot about self-reflection as well. So for example, for this, when you're insert any person currently frustrating you. So when your spouse, child, boss, what have you, is frustrating you, think about how dislocated they must be and feel by the pandemic, rather than thinking how much they're annoying you. So in a way, you're kind of challenging your thoughts, you're putting yourself in their shoes. When I used to go to my job, I was a school teacher for many years, and I had the lead teacher at the time, before I came the lead teacher, was miserable. And I always used to think, geez, I wonder if she got into an argument with her spouse this morning. I wonder if she came to work miserable because her middle school son was arguing with her before he left for school. So I just tried to, instead of focusing on the fact that, she was annoying me, what were the reasons she was in a position herself? So understanding others, basically. Number 5, response modulation. So response modulation is the in the moment strategy of regulating your emotional state. What you can do when you've started to feel your heart rise, for instance. So what you can do in the moment. Basically, it's the idea that you're trying to change the output of your emotions. Suppression is a response modulation, albeit a potentially harmful one. So yes, you can suppress something, but keep in mind, it's just like putting a ball underwater, or holding, a beach ball underwater. It's going to come out, and it's going to come out with a vengeance. So I don't highly advise suppression, unless your boss is yelling at you and you really want to give them your peace of mind. Yeah, you can temporarily suppress your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings. But anyways, just an example of what I'm talking about would be like breathing deeply. Practicing breathing deeply is exactly that. It's a practice. So clarify your emotion goals, use what works for you, and practice it over time. Take note that when you see positive changes, you'll get better at it. So, if you find yourself getting stressed often, or emotionally regulate yourself with say deep breathing, because when you're at the time where you absolutely need that deep breathing, especially now that the holidays are coming up, we might need some of these things when we're sitting around the table with our family or friends. You can tap back into it easily. What's more important, you're demonstrating healthy emotional practices for others, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your friends, to know and learn. So basically, it just helps everybody in your circle, including helping yourself. A few other quick techniques I wanted to share with you is to ground yourself with the 5 senses. So again, this is all about emotionally regulating yourself. Ground yourself with the 5 senses. So using your 5 senses is another simple but impactful way to remind your nervous system that in spite of your surrounding stressors, things are going to be okay. Engage 5 of your senses. What it does is it brings you back to the present. So many times we get caught up in the past or the future, when really there is no wild tiger ready to charge you in your bedroom right now. So, let's bring you back to the basics. Let's bring you back to the present where you are. So name 2 or 3 things that you can see. Name and call it out. Name it out loud. 2 or 3 things that you can smell. 2 or 3 things that you can taste, even if it's the air around you or the coffee that you're sipping, what have you. 2 or 3 things that you can hear. This brings you to the here and now. Takes you out of the past, prevents you from the anxiety of the future, just brings you into the here and now. Take a second or two to engage each of your senses. While you're at it, take a few deep breaths. As you become more aware of your surroundings, your body should get the message that the situation is not as dire as you thought, or that your brain trailed off into a being, and you'll find it easier to talk yourself out of that stressful situation. Number 2, this is relatively common, move your body. When you're at the edge of losing your cool, your body is holding on to a lot of energy. So it's almost like that shaken soda situation. You got to unscrew that cap, let some of that fizz out, some of that energy, some of that pent up energy. One way to release that excess energy is to move your body, whether you bang out a few jumping jacks or take a brisk walk around the block, whatever you have time for. Sometimes you only have seconds to get rid of some energy. So maybe shake your leg if you need to, or, shake your foot, especially if you're in a business meeting and you need to let some energy out. Not only does this release stress, also gives you a little exercise and brings on some of those endorphins, some of those mood improving chemicals that we all love to feel. Number 4, crack a joke. listen, this can be counterintuitive to make light of a situation that you're currently in, especially if it's causing you major stress. Finding humor in a situation is a good way to help your brain shift gears. So if you have it in you, make a joke about the current situation you're in. Even if it's a pretty major situation, try to find something funny within it, except if you're in court. Don't do that. I got in trouble one time for trying to find something funny when I was in court because it always happens when you're in church when it's quiet, or or in a court. You get the giggles for some reason. Making a joke about what's going on, depending on the situation, can be quite effective in lightening the mood in the room, which makes it easier to focus on solutions. Like I said, unless you're in church at quiet time or in court. And again, you can make a joke about the situation you're in, or just about something funny in general. If you're going through something and you need to really calm your emotions, think about a stand-up comedian you once heard, a funny joke, a funny situation you were in. That'll immediately reposition and realign your internal stress factor. Debate your own thoughts. Adulting is tough. It really is. It's easy to focus on the hard stuff. And really, that's what we do a lot of times, especially when you're already stressed out in general with multiple things that all the adulting, multi-layered, complex issues that we all deal with. The problem is letting your thoughts trail off unchecked can add to your sense of overwhelm. If you find yourself on the edge of losing your cool, it's important to check in with your thoughts. Are you catastrophizing something that could be managed, or being overly black and white about a situation that you're facing? If so, it may be time to infuse some logic into your irrational thinking. And again, this goes a little bit to what I was thinking before, is thinking about what you're thinking and challenge what you're thinking. So example, if your marriage has been tough lately, you may find yourself thinking about, is your relationship destined to end? While your thought may feel real, chances are you've gotten way ahead of yourself. So once you identify thoughts that are contributing to your stress, work on replacing them with more realistic ones. For instance, say to yourself, this moment is difficult, or these challenges currently are hard. But I think I'll work through this like I've always worked through things in my life. Be strong, stand strong. So basically, you're challenging your thoughts and your feelings. And be a cheerleader to yourself. I mean, we're our own best friend. Well, we can also be our own worst critic, but work on being your own best friend. And then last but not least, enlist some support. I mean, Lord have mercy, you're not the only person on this earth. Preparation is huge, crucial, is a crucial key component to emotional regulation. And also being able to get yourself off an emotional cliff. Once you work on your way through the initial moment of stress, focus on reducing the effects of stress in your life. And those are the basics that we all talk about. Getting enough sleep, making sure that your organs are well hydrated with water. You're getting those proper vegetables and nutrients. You're eating right. You're exercising if you can. And again, this doesn't mean 5 days away. You're on 5 days a week. You're on the treadmill for 2 hours. That means getting up and doing 5 jumping jacks every once in a while, or stretching. It doesn't have to be this, big, grueling, egregious workout program. Your breathing is very important. Breathing exercises, and we all know now, or should know, a couple of them. If not, watch a few classes here at PBT, and you'll have your doctorate in breathing exercises. So basically, it's self-care. That's basically what this comes down to, is self-care. These practices can help you tolerate stress more, so you'll be less likely to freak out when tough moments inevitably hit. And tough moments are inevitably going to hit. They're going to hit you even aside from betrayal or trauma. Now that the majority of us are dealing with betrayal and trauma, they are most certainly going to hit. So preparation is key to practice these things, to have these things. So when challenges rise up, you can meet them. Now, you're not always going to beat them, but you can meet them and give it your best go. And if you find yourself stressed out persistently, you're struggling with anxiety that impairs your functioning, obviously, and if you're here watching this, you may have already done this, reach out to a coach, a friend, a counselor, a pastor, just to talk. Oftentimes, just a quick vent lets you know that you're not carrying the load alone and you're not feeling alone. Not feeling alone helps us do wonders to help self-regulate. And also, and this is a given too, is to help self-regulate is sometimes just to write things down. I encourage people that have anxiety to do this all the time, because so many times we have all these thoughts in our head and they're so all over the place. Where if you just simply write down your thoughts, you're not even writing down a remedy, you're not even writing down a fix, you're just simply putting them from your mind to the paper. You'll find yourself immediately self-regulating.